Welcome back, life science learners, to another segment. In this segment, we're going to look at the structure of the female reproductive systems and what happens to them during puberty. We're also going to look at puberty in males. Let's look at the concepts in this lesson. So let's look at puberty and what happens during puberty, and then we're going to move on to looking at gametogenesis and the process of the production of the male gametes and the female gametes. So it's important that we understand what is puberty. And often in grade 8 and 9, we go through a process of teachers explaining to us changes in our body. And so those changes are often changes that we find difficult to understand at that age. But I suppose when you start understanding the body and understanding what happens, you can understand the process better. So essentially, puberty is a process of changes physically and emotionally in the body that prepares a young individual to become sexually, reproductively capable. Now, what does that mean? So if you think of every individual, when we're born with male and female parts. However, as a young boy that's not reached puberty, or a girl, we're not able to produce offspring. So it means that there are lots of changes that need to happen to the body in order for a child to be able to mature to produce an offspring. So those changes that happens to the body that allows for an individual, a boy or a girl, to be able to reproduce is referred to as puberty. And so this does not just affect the physical changes, but as well in terms of emotional changes. So it's a difficult phase for some individuals. There are lots of hormones that are involved, and so those hormones bring about emotions that are very different to the way you would have felt before all of these changes. You become very self-conscious because there are things that change in your body. Individuals tend to gain weight, sometimes body changes, and so those changes often are not understood well. So let's look at what happens during puberty. Let's try and have an insight as to why it happens. Okay, so as I mentioned, it's a physical change as well as mentally that a child's body goes through into becoming capable of sexual reproduction. These changes include changes in hormones as well as your emotional changes that take place. Let's look at puberty in males. And so we refer to these as changes in secondary sexual characteristics and hormones. So what do I mean by secondary sexual characteristics? These are the changes that happen at puberty to the body. And so let's look at what that means. So we often hear of someone changing and becoming from a boy into a man. So we know that there are changes in the body. Let's try and unpack that. So we know that testosterone plays an important role. We discussed that it's produced by the testes, but this happens at a specific age. And this causes the prenatal development of the male genitalia, as well as the development of the male secondary sexual characteristics during puberty, and controls sperm production for the rest of their lives. So during the development of a baby in the fetus, we find that the testosterone levels will kind of influence the development of the male reproductive system. But at puberty, we find that the testosterone allows for the development of the male parts as well as for the production of sperm. So when we look at the male reproductive system and puberty in males, these are some of the characteristics that we see due to the increase in hormones. So we find that the testes will start producing sperms, and that is because of the influence of the hormone testosterone. And so testosterone is produced by cells in the testes that are then released that stimulate the production of testosterone. We know that there's an emotional change, an impact on the brain, so there's an increased drive for sexual activity. We know that sometimes the voice of boys become deeper, and that again is the growth of the larynx, the voice box. We see there's an increase in facial hair as well as body hair. Boys tend to develop rapid muscle at an age of puberty. We also know that there's the development of the external male genitalia, so the development of the testes and the penis, and these become significantly larger. So we often see changes in boys around the age of 13 and 14, and this is very different in different boys. So there's no specific age where all boys that are 13 or 14 start undergoing puberty. That's a general age around which this happens. It could happen in some boys much earlier, in others slightly late. But this is again influenced by environment and one's individual development. When we look at testosterone in the male reproductive system, as I mentioned, it is secreted by the testes and it's responsible for, again, the development of the male reproductive glands, in this case the penis as well as the testes. It stimulates the onset of puberty, and testosterone aids in the development of the male characteristics such as the development of muscle mass, hair on the body, the deepening of the voice, etc. It also helps to maintain male sex drive, and so that is an important hormone in males. Puberty in females, also influenced by hormones, also bring about changes in the body, and we refer to those changes at puberty as secondary sexual characteristics. The two main hormones that are responsible for these changes are estrogen and progesterone. And so these are important in female reproductive system as well as in controlling the menstrual cycle. So we know that these hormones play an important role in the process of menstruation. But before that happens, there is an increase in estrogen and progesterone that stimulates the development of the ovary and the further development and production of eggs in the ovary. We will also see changes in the female body. What has been seen is that there is a significantly younger age at which girls go through puberty when compared to males. And that's just how it is. And this has got to do with the development of the female body as well as the release of hormones, being at an age slightly younger than boys. So, when we look at the female reproductive system, we see that when puberty takes place, the development of these secondary sexual characteristics include the development, enlargement of the breast. We see that the hips often widen and there is an increase in fat deposition, the growth of body hair around the armpits and the pubic regions, as well as the development of the female external genitalia. We also know that within the ovaries, we see a process of the egg development taking place, and all of this is regarded as changes in the body that happen as secondary sexual characteristics. So guys, you've done well. We've looked at the male reproductive system. We've looked at the parts that are responsible for changes during sexual development at puberty, and we've compared those to the female reproductive system and how those structures and parts change during puberty. You've done well. You deserve a break, a quick short break, and I'll see you at the end of that.